pleasure to have you all here. I just don't really see how this bill is fair to the people who are here legally. The real problem is our economy is very fragile. It's based on tourism. And I don't think we would be in this situation if casinos would not disproportionately hire people who are foreign-born. But let's talk about what the real concern about all this is, that immigration, the main problem, it's nothing more but a power grab. As you see in many organizations like Culinary, use them as a way to pump politicians with a voter base by using identity politics. A week ago, there was the so-called Latino lobby. And the fact is, you guys are pretty concerned that we may not have the recovery that would take us back to 2019 levels. Instead, what we should be doing is we should be making sure that these jobs that come available are going to be given to young folks who are disproportionately unemployed. And we should also be mandating E-Verify to find employers who are not working here legally. The worst part about this immigration is that it's making our country more divided. In fact, I don't think even immigrants are being helped. All what's happening is that the wealthy are laughing their way to the bank. I don't see how there is a lot of contributions when remittances are being sent by the billions overseas. And speaking of power structure, let's talk about the state of California, the highest percentage of immigrants, and caters to people regardless of status. It's created a voting base. And as a result, what we have is higher taxes, companies that are fleeing our state. Is that what you really, really want to bring? And when we ask questions, politicians like Selena Torres just ignore us and walk away. I see this as taxation without representation, and I think the caravans are going to make things even worse. And this is a prime example. You're giving us more leverage to break up the United States. This economic system is very fragile. Migrants depend on the Federal Reserve to pump their programs. The housing bubble is going to burst up, which means there's going to be more job losses, particularly to immigrants. And not to mention technology. This is not what's talked about. It's going to disproportionately affect their job. Andrew Yang mentioned that Nevada is going to be the hardest hit. Where was the Culinary Union, who represents immigrants, inviting him to his platform? This is a prime excuse for us to get a divorce, break apart. I don't want to pay taxes to the system, especially when people who steal Social Security numbers, as Kevin DeLeon, the state senator, admitted that that is exactly what they do, who presented the SB 54 bill in the state of California. Seriously, it's time to represent us. And by the way, I have some DACA friends, but you know what? I don't like this political agenda that's being persuaded them. It's the agenda. It's the use of immigrants, not the immigrants.
We're going to have to cut you off. You didn't mention a single section on the bill. Next caller, please.
According to Harry Reid in 1993, children who are born on U.S. soil by parents, regardless of status, can get welfare benefits. And we've seen the outrage over the public charge rule that was being enforced about a year ago. But let's cut to the chase. The real concern is the power grab. We know that mass immigration is outvoting a certain amount of people. And we've seen how the changes to the state of California, a state that's worsened more than any other state in the last 50 years. Perhaps a lot of people perceive the fact that these changes have been due because these new people who come from all over the world have changed their voting base. We'd like to know, why does Nevada have among the highest rate of non-legal immigrants into the U.S.? We'd like to sit down, talk, what's the purpose of it, why that is, and is it worth it to play identity politics where immigrants come here and then play victims and say they're being oppressed? Well, why are you coming to an area that you're being oppressed? I think we need to sit down and have a compromise. Maybe we can keep a lot of non-citizens, but we can reduce future levels of migration. I think we can look at places like Dubai that have much higher rates of immigration, but have a different societal structure. I think you can look at my family as an example. They learn English. I'm employed by my cousin who is an immigrant, who is involved in engineering and architecture. And if you refuse to sit down and talk and have a compromise and see what's going on, well, this is benefiting corporate America tremendously, then I think we should consider breaking up. Ignoring us means that there's going to be more tensions, more events like Charlottesville, January 6th, and we see that these current trends, it's going to continue to expand and change states like Idaho and Kentucky. And when we give a slight bit of concern, we're going to be called racist. Ultimately, my solution in the long term, the next several decades, have a global overhaul of the economic system and get rid of the monetary system. It's for these monetary differences among other countries that encourages mass migration. If we have a totally different economic system, migration would change, and a lot of these problems would not exist. So I think this movement is called the Venus Project, and I think you should probably look into it. But other than that, short term, we really need to study this. We need to have a compromise, or we may have to consider breaking apart the United States. But other than that, I really greatly pleasure for all of you to sit down and really share our concerns. So minimum wage increases have its benefits. The issue is that it doesn't really work too well if it's adjusted for inflation. I believe Washington State does that. And the other issue is that it doesn't solve the heart of the problem, which is, of course, number one, the growing level of income inequality and the growing level of cost of living. Cost of living is rising. Rents and housing prices are rising faster than inflation. If we keep raising the minimum wage, but they fail to keep up, it's not going to do a lot, and it's not going to solve the heart of the problem. Again, we're going after the bones of the structure. We're not going after the foundation. The other concern is income inequality. Right now, typically a CEO makes 500 to 1 in terms of worker pay ratio to CEO. And as a result, minimum wage has not kept up in terms of that component. Now, I want to know, why don't we have a wage ratio top to bottom where you have former CEOs like Jim Murren of MGM, he had a total compensation of $35 million. Meanwhile, many of his employees perhaps are still struggling to make ends meet. I'd like there to be a 1 ratio to 1 to 50 for also companies like Walmart and Amazon. And I wonder why very few of the organizations in Nevada, left or right, are even talking about this. In fact, our current administration is not talking about this. This is the number one problem with our economy. And
Mr. Hajjati, thank you so much for calling in. We appreciate your testimony or your public comment always. And again, if you had information you wanted to send over for inclusion in the meeting record, please email the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor. Thank you. Broadcasting.
Just wanted to state, like the gentleman said earlier, there are many people waiting in opposition, so I'm not going to take up any more time and see if they can get on. Something's going on with your system. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go to the next.
I am in opposition of this. There's countless reasons. I don't have a carefully prepared, written out statement like I've noticed most people have, as many of us just found out about this late last night. But I just want to state my opposition. I too have the same sob stories as some of the people that gave their statements earlier, how my family here, and I've been a native Nevadan for over 50 years, and my family's been here since the early 1920s, and I've seen this place change. I have the sob story, too, how this has broken up my family because my husband of 23 years was forced to leave the state of Nevada looking for work, and I've had to spend the last 10 years raising my 3 children myself. There's many instances. I have many friends and neighbors. We're afraid to call the police on some of the activities that we see because we are afraid of being targeted by whether it's cartel or the illegals or whoever. There's many reasons that I oppose this. The reason why immigrants love it here is because this country is great. But the reason why this country is so great is because of the laws that are in place, and why are we trying to create more laws that change that and that want to go around laws that have been in place for decades. So I just want to let you know, I can go on, and I wish I would have known about this earlier so I could have prepared a statement, but I oppose this, and please reconsider it for those who have been affected for the past 15, 20 years by the illegal immigration here. Let's reserve the jobs, the scarce jobs that there are left, for the citizens of this community, please. Thank you.